Got a complex situation in schools. In the 24-25 school year, there are studies that show that about 60% of teachers were using AI in some fashion. A lot of it in their study planning. But the problem is, just 1 year later, another study showed that only about 18% of those teachers or school systems in the United States had provided guidance to teachers on, or staff in general, on AI use.
Welcome to Playbook AI Partners Podcast, the show that turns AI from overwhelming into actionable.
Your host, Sandy Kibling, is the chief playmaker, helping business owners and teams stop chasing shiny tools and start using AI in a way that actually moves the numbers, saving time, reducing busy work, and driving growth.
Each episode features industry experts and real-world tactics, providing clear, do this next plays, simple AI workflows, and practical guardrails so you can use AI safely, execute with confidence, and get results.
Let's run the play.
Hello, everyone, and before we get into the show, just a quick 90-second update. What would you do with 5, 10, or even 15 extra hours each week? Maybe spend time growing your business, finally finishing that project, or maybe just closing the laptop before dinner for once. At Playbook AI Partners, we believe that AI should give you time back, not give you one more complicated thing to figure out. That's why we created the AI Solution Locker, a growing collection of practical, bite-sized solutions designed to help you solve real problems quickly. In 20 minutes or less, you heard right, 20 minutes or less, you can learn how to streamline those repetitive tasks, create content faster, organize information, build simple automations, and get more accomplished without becoming a technology expert. And here's a bonus. No endless or outdated courses, no confusing tech talk, just open the AI Solution Locker, choose the solution you need, and put it to work. And here's another bonus. You don't have to do it alone. And in this current wave of AI, I don't think you should. Inside the Huddle, our Playbook AI Partners community, you'll connect with other curious business owners and professionals who are learning, experimenting, and building with AI. Join live sessions, quarterly training boot camps, ask questions, access helpful resources, and get the support you need to move from AI overwhelm to confident action. So stop spending those hours trying to piece everything together on your own. Get the solution. Let's run the play together and get your time back. I would love to have you join the Huddle and get to meet you and help you on this journey. So visit Playbook AI Partners and step into the AI Solution Locker and the Huddle today. And now on with the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. AI is changing the classroom. Is the school district ready? On this show, we often explore AI trends, their impact on business, and practical tips for successful implementation. But today and going forward, we're expanding the conversation to examine how AI is reshaping specific industries, starting with education and the future of our schools. AI isn't just changing how students learn, it's forcing schools to rethink how they operate. Are teachers, district leaders, and parents ready for what comes next? To get into this topic is Byron Headrick. Byron is co-founder and CEO of Lean Frog, a consulting firm that helps public school systems improve efficiency, strengthen operations, and make better use of limited resources. Byron is a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt who applies proven process improvement methods to help school districts reduce inefficiency, improve organizational performance, and make thoughtful, data-informed decisions. Byron is also an author and national speaker whose books explore leadership, organizational performance, operational efficiency, and the changing future of public education. His work helps education leaders identify what is working, confront what is not, and make strategic changes before circumstances force their hand. Byron brings a clear, candid, and solutions-focused perspective to some of the most difficult challenges facing education leaders, including AI's interest into education. Welcome or not. Welcome to the show, Byron.
Hello, Sandy. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Well, I'm excited. You have such a wealth of expertise, and I'm so excited to bring in that different trend. We certainly talk about all things AI on the show, but I'm beginning to hear a lot of my conversations really across different industries, people's concerns about AI's impact. And at the time of this, it's August 2026, so school's about ready to start. And parents are concerned, and I've heard teachers concerned as well with the impact of AI. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. But before we get into all of that, tell us more about you and how it's led you on the journey you are on today.
Well, I'd like to start by making sure everyone understands I'm not an educator, but I've been working in schools for about 18 years now. I started out as an engineer and I had the unique opportunity kind of mid-career to refocus from optimizing companies to helping school systems optimize. So I don't tell teachers how to teach, but what I try to do is get rid of all the stuff that makes it hard for them and gets in their way.
No, that's awesome. And there's such a need for that because I think there's so much going on. Well, in our pre-talk, we talked about the concern around the system surrounding teachers and students, and are they prepared for what AI is about to change?
So you've got a kind of a complex situation in school. So in the 24-25 school year, there's studies that show that about 60% of teachers were using AI in some fashion, a lot of it in their study planning. But the problem is, just 1 year later, another study showed that only about 18% or school systems in the United States had provided guidance to teachers on or staff in general on AI use. So you've got a big gap here. You've got use that's occurring on its own, not really necessarily directly promoted by schools. And you have the school system that's a little slower to react to that. And I think that's because, most school systems are really focused on trying to make sure that they're compliant, they have a safe environment, and they're trying to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. Yet at the same time, your teachers are, like several staff members in school systems, are kind of overwhelmed and they're looking for help. So they have a natural tendency to be reaching out, and they're doing it faster than they're getting guidance.
Two questions come to mind. Are they using it to create lesson plans, to create tests, to create education material? Let's start with the first one. What are they? I get they need it to help. I certainly respect that. What are they using it for?
Well, a lot of them are using it to do some of those things that you just stated, to help automate or to help speed up the completion of some of those tasks using existing materials and modifying them quickly. There are some cases where, and I'm not going to name any districts, but where we've seen teachers kind of go too far with it, meaning before that guidance, actually using it to, and I'm not saying it's wrong to use it, but without the structures and the harnesses in place, you definitely don't want to go into a general AI and start getting it to do student IEPs. But there's been some issues where, due to workload and staff resources, there's been issues where they jump to that too quickly without really considering what that does or really understanding what AI is. And that's part of the gap, is there's been no general training on AI. So if you went and surveyed 10 teachers, you probably are going to get 10 different answers. Some will be pro, some will be not. It's kind of like that old the Eastern Indian proverb of the 6 blind men who fill an elephant. One fills the side of the elephant and goes, it's a wall. An elephant's like a wall. And another one fills the tail and says, no, it's like a snake. Well, AI right now for these teachers, they're getting information from different sources. They're sharing information with each other, but because of that lack of formal guidance and training, it's ad hoc on how complete that is. So the problem is when they misunderstand what AI is and they start believing that AI is actually thinking versus being a partner to help you organize your thoughts. In other words, AI shouldn't be giving you the answer. It should be helping you hone your answer. Without that formal guidance, you have people who believe that AI is the best thing since sliced bread and asked it, hey, I've got this issue with a student, what should I do? And they're going to get not the best information. And they may not get wrong information, but they may not get the best information for that student. And then you have people who say it's just an autocomplete. It's no good. We shouldn't be using it at all. And they're wrong too. There's a happy median and a good place for AI, and it's going to be needed in schools as resources continue to shift. We're in a spot right now in public education in America where we're seeing a rapid decline in student population in public schools. We're seeing that because of birth rates reducing. We're seeing it now because public schools have to compete with other agencies, charter schools, even these little pod schools or homeschooling. So you're seeing a reduction in children in these government bureaucracies that can't move quick to adjust. Does that make sense? So what's happening is resources are getting compressed and people are looking for ways to address their challenges with limited resources, and they're moving to AI. And it's being done out of exhaustion versus out of intent, meaning they feel they have to do more and they don't have the time to do it.
No, and I feel for teachers where that's concerned because they're always having, it seems, to do more with less. I do have empathy for that, but I think I'm a little taken back by one of the things that you said. I always say there's this race to use AI. And once you start really using it, you're like, oh my God, there's so many great things I can do. This is great. It's a time saver. And you really think you are doing good. But I think where I was a bit taken back, and maybe this goes to our conversation when AI enters a classroom, are there not districts that are putting protocols in place and guidance and training for teachers so that there is good use of it and that it's consistent?
There are, but like I said, in early 2026, that was 18% of school systems. So it's a lot of people right now, a lot of my clients right now have formed AI committees or tasks to evaluate how they can use AI. They're trying to put structure around it. But the use of AI isn't waiting on that structure. The teachers and individuals are moving to using AI before that formal structure is in place. And that's where there's opportunity for some issues to occur. And it's also where there's opportunities really, anytime you have chaos, you have an opportunity for something good to come out of it or something bad. And in some districts, because their teachers got an early jump, when they formed those committees, they were real quick to say, here's what we should be doing and know what they should be doing. And they were probably just part of that 18%. Other schools who have not been able to get there because their focuses are on other concerns right now, doesn't mean that their teachers aren't using those tools, and it doesn't mean that those students won't have an effect of those tools. So we're just behind a little bit in education when it comes to technology. The other big thing right now is a debate over AI-enabled tools versus general AI use, meaning do you populate a series of tools that are AI enabled for specific tasks, or do you want to teach AI literacy and AI supervision in general? So what you're seeing is the districts have a tendency to move toward the tools first versus the general understanding, the literacy, and the supervisory skills. It's just easier for a large organization to do that versus the time and focus it takes to build kind of an AI literacy program. Plus, they really don't have that expertise in-house to build those literacy programs. So you're seeing a lot of education tools, a lot of learning management systems moving to using AI and using pieces of AI, but you're also seeing things like Magic School, which is it's a kind of like a general AI that's been designed for schools. It has all the FERPA compliance pieces addressed, and it's designed to be used by students, teachers, and some support staff. It allows the students to actually learn AI in a safe environment, one that's not necessarily open connection to the world, and it has certain guardrails established on it. But those tools, like Magic Schools, those are, again, you're going to find that in the 18%. You're not going to find that in spread across the U.S. That's the issue right now. Is each teacher, the majority of teachers, each one is trying to figure it out for themselves and for their school. Each principal is trying to get his teachers to figure it out for his school. They're instead of having a unified approach in general, it's kind of everyone's trying to do the best they can with the tools they have. Now, I'm not trying to sound super negative, and I do think schools are trying to move forward very quickly with this, but I think the pressure is for the staff and teachers and students to move ahead faster than they can put out the guidance.
Now, I have to ask you a question. You've explained everything very well, but it kind of feels like the wild, wild west is kind of where I go to in my head. But if I'm a parent and I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, what is the impact? And again, I get good intention. I get everybody's trying. I get limited resources, but I can't help but think as a parent, what is the impact to my kids, their education, and what it is that they're being taught?
So again, right now, that 18%, or
Mhm.
maybe it's broader than that right now, because that was early 2026, and we're toward the end of 2026. A lot of work was done this summer. Almost at every education conference I was at, there was some discussion of AI.
Hmm.
So it's they're trying to catch up fast, but we're still lagging just a little bit in education. What's happening though, it's in the majority of cases, it's the teachers doing the work that is not directly student tied, and from the standpoint of they're not using it to give them their lesson plan and not putting something in. Does that make sense? They're using it to hone, but there are instances because and it's not really a wild wild west. It's just it's a frontier, right? It's the technology is moving and being adopted faster than an organization can provide guidance. And general guidance doesn't exist other than through, word of mouth, trade publications, and those things. So the impact on your student in the majority of cases is not huge yet, but there have been instances where AI has been used to do things like develop individual education plans for students without guidance yet. And those end up getting caught often because of the other compliance mechanisms inside a school. So there are pieces to catch when things get out of alignment. So I don't want parents being fearful,
Mhm.
but at the same time, they need to understand that just because the school system isn't saying they're using AI doesn't mean their individual classroom teacher isn't.
I think everybody's trying to do the best that they can and move. And this is in business world too. We're all just trying to figure it out and adapt as we go, and certainly learn along the way. I always say a failure or, a misstep is always a learning opportunity. But you talked about the magic school. You talked about AI being taught and how that may be being interweaved into the curriculum. What do you see on the horizon for that? Because I often hear parents talk about trying to be vested in their kids' education and how much time they spend on the computer. Now we're teaching them AI. Where do you see that going? And what about parents who say, well, I want to limit that, or I'm not so sure that I'm on the fence with that? I mean, where do parents, teachers, school districts all fit in the future of teaching kids AI in the classroom?
I'm glad you brought that up because
Yeah.
what we're seeing right now is we have enough research to show that, and again, this is probably controversial, so you'll probably get some comments from some folk. But what we're seeing, it's not that necessarily technology is bad, but the overuse of technology is creating issues in the quality of education being delivered. Now that's not AI. That was before that. And before COVID, we were moving that way. I worked with one of the districts in Alabama that at the time did the largest one-to-one computer rollout in the United States. And it was supposed to bring a lot of opportunity to the kids. Now, it does, but at the same time, if you diminish the focus on actual in-person teaching with the tool, it hurts. The other thing we're seeing, I talk a lot in my work about cross signals and how multiple things end up integrating together to create effects that people don't expect or want. Every now and then it's good, but usually it's not, right? So what we saw is we saw this trend and push to going to one-to-one prior to COVID. COVID hit, and it was immediately accelerated because we felt, we can't have these kids at home not having any learning occurring, right? So we pushed out devices. And since COVID, we have a lot of technology in schools. And when I say one-to-one, I may not be clear. If you're not in school, you may not know what I mean by that. That is one device per student, meaning they have their device. They're going to have that device. They may not take it home with them, but when they're at school, they have a device like a textbook. That's what I mean when I say one-to-one. What we found, though, at the same time this heavy deployment of technology occurred, we're seeing an issue of not being able to find certified teachers to fill the roles. So we're having uncertified teachers come in who are still under development, and their goal is to become certified teachers, but they're having to take classrooms. If the districts aren't careful, sometimes that leads to an over-reliance on technology versus teaching. And again, this predates AI.
Yeah.
So now you've got an environment where there's a lot of technology deployed. There's a portion of teachers that don't have certification. They're not fully prepared. They're being prepared on the job as they work, if that makes sense. And you got this mix of more and more mandates being put on them with less and less time. It creates an opportunity for technology to be overused, over-relied on. Hey, today, this is what we're going to do in the class because I've got to be handling this over here. We're going to put you on the computer. I want you doing these exercises on the computer. And some districts have, because of that, are seeing an issue in individualized personal teaching. The teacher actually being the lead versus the technology being the lead. And that's good and bad. The technology at least has a standard. Does that make sense? So
It does. Yeah.
it's got a standard. An uncertified teacher may not be fully at standard yet. They're trying to get there. So the technology boosts that, but at the same time, I think that's why we're seeing a hard time recovering from the COVID hit. And we're realizing that we may be over-relying on technology. That being said, now you throw AI in the mix, which complicates the problem even further, because now not only do you have teachers who aren't prepared to teach fully, they're getting there, they're under development, they're being developed. Now they're have access to tools that will help them with their time and take some pressure off, but they still don't have guidance on that. So it is a mix of different things occurring that's putting pressure on that classroom teacher. And that teacher in the same school, you may have between 5 to 20% of the teachers uncertified.
Yeah.
So that may change between classes for your child. If the child is switching classes, the level of teaching and the use of technology is going to flex. It's hard for parents to know exactly what's happening between those classes and the different levels with those teachers. So it's important for parents to be engaging not only with their students, but with their schools and their students' teachers if they can, and ask some questions. Ask how much technology are you going to be using with the kids? Ask the teacher how she uses AI. Don't be accusing them of anything, but have a conversation. And that will, in most cases, it should make you more comfortable, or it may raise a flag that you may need to counter some of those things with your home practices.
I was just going to ask you that about what can parents do to work with teachers and their kids to support the change. So I appreciate you segueing into that, because I think maybe attending those parent-teacher conferences, and I don't know if school districts have meetings and stuff as well.
Mhm.
But speaking of that, I want to go back to that 18%. You talked about the 18%, and I want to make sure I interpreted that number correctly. That is 18% of districts that are actively working on strategies and addressing the gap and the regulation and use of AI.
That refers to is 18% of teachers reported in early 2026 that they had received formal guidance from their district about how to use AI for learning and instruction.
Okay. So with that being said, let's talk, because 18% is a low number in my opinion, but I understand, that was early 2026. Hopefully we're seeing some changes in that. Can you give us perspective of that? And also, while you're doing that, help us understand, because I think you're trying to help with this problem with Lean Frog Consulting, which is your business. So can you help us understand how we're going to get that 18% up to a higher number? And with that, tell us more about Lean Frog Consulting and how you maybe help supporting that number getting higher.
So what we're encouraging, and again, we're seeing states actually right now, I will say this, I think maybe 6 or 8 at this point, states have formulated direct guidance. They did that in the spring and summer for their school systems. So they're getting that. There's some work being done right now at the federal level to create some federal guidance to roll out. So all that's happening. It's just the speed.
Yeah.
What I've been working with districts is getting them to understand what AI really is and how it's most beneficial for the district. So what I encourage districts to do, and we assist them with, is really kind of a two-pronged approach with AI. One is putting guidance in place, and I do think it's good to do that through task force committees, getting actually the teachers involved in designing the guidance, and then rolling that out. And really the intent, it starts by getting the district as a whole to understand what AI is. The next level is basically being able not only to control usage of AI, but to develop how to teach AI to kids and how to get them to understand what it is so that they don't think that AI becomes their best friend.
Byron, there's a lot of work ahead of that. We will make sure and link to the Lean Frog Consulting so that people can see what your services are. And I appreciate that you're out there helping folks do that. So as we draw to a close, what are some final tips that you would leave listeners, maybe leaders in school districts, teachers, parents, final thoughts that you would leave them with?
When I work with individuals, the first thing to do is for them to get that general understanding that I just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage people to read on up and really understand what the tool is and what it is not. Develop that basic understanding first. Then it's, again, once you have that, and I tell this to school leaders often, there's certain areas where you should start by allowing people to develop proficiency on an individual level. For instance, it's not wrong to have 20 people using AI and not have standardized work that they have to do ABC with it. Give them some flexibility, but it starts with that first understanding and then put the guardrails on them so they can experiment and use it correctly. Then once you have some of that usage, let that group or those individuals, once you have a good understanding, then let's look at how we can use some of the larger effects, maybe some more agentic versus general AI, where we can start using AI to actually not just answer questions in an LLM, but we could use AI to actually take on tasks for us. And again, I like to do that in teams and groups and share across the group so they build understanding as they go. And then I typically would suggest districts consider rolling out enterprise level solutions. And on the instruction side, I hope I haven't pitched Magic School to anyone. It's just a good product. I don't get paid for that, but it's a good idea for the instructional side. I see limits with it on the non-instructional side, if that makes sense. As a leader and as a parent, there's a lot that has to go into your communication and making sure people have that basic understanding. I know it sounds so simple, but it's the one gap. They're jumping to use and they really don't understand what they have. They'll jump there when they don't even really understand the tool.
Yeah.
And there's enough information on the internet and in books now where you can go get a prompt from someone, you can get a skill from someone, drop it into general AI and start work and never understand what the guardrails were put on that prompt or that skill by the developer. And when you hit an issue, you don't even know what's going to cause it an issue if you're doing that.
Yeah.
So that general understanding is key. My closing statement is that I had someone tell me at a small rural school district that AI is the devil. And AI is not the devil, but at the same time, it's not a tool without consequences. So my biggest piece is make sure you understand foundationally the tool. I'm not saying you have to be a coder, but you need to at least understand what it can do and what it cannot, not from a task level, but from how it's trained and what it was made to do. And from that level, we can build on, but until that general understanding exists, there's going to be a lot of misuse of the tool, and it's going to be a misuse by not just by your teachers, it's going to be the parents, it's going to be the students, it's going to be our communities. We're going to have people who think AI is their best friend. We're going to have people who don't understand that they shouldn't be asking AI for these things because it's not going to help you. And they're going to be missing the things that it could be helpful with. So that foundational understanding of AI to me is the very first point. And I know it's so simple. To me, it's basic, but it is the missing piece is that deep understanding of what it is, what it can do, and what it can't do, not from a technical perspective or a code perspective, but just here's what it was made for, and here's how it's going to go find you a solution.
I appreciate that. And I looked at your website. It's great. It's Lean Frog Consulting. We will link to that in the show notes so they can learn more about the service offerings you have. You also have a great Substack, the Superintendent's Field Guide. So we will also link to that as well. I've read one of your articles just this morning, and I found it to be very informational as well, because I know we could talk, but we are limited on our time. But that's why we link to those great sources in the show notes. So Byron, thank you for being on the show. This has been one of the most enlightening conversations I've had about education and AI, and I appreciate your expertise, all that you're doing out there to really make a difference. It takes a village. So thank you for your time and your expertise today.
Well, thank you for having me on, Sandy. I appreciate it.
I enjoyed having Byron on the show. What an interesting conversation about AI and how it is impacting the world of education, our teachers, our school districts, our kids. Really an enlightening conversation. Make sure you check out the show notes for the links to Lean Frog Consulting and also Byron's Substack site as well. Some great conversations. In our next episode, we're going to go beyond those buzzwords to explore how businesses can make AI work in the ever-changing landscape while protecting privacy and security. A topic I love to talk about, but one I don't think we do enough. To help us get into this topic, I'm bringing on Kevin Carlson on the show. Kevin is a seasoned tech exec and a go-to expert on AI's real-world impact within businesses. He's been a CTO, a CISO 4 times over, working across different industries in both North America and Europe. So he brings a genuine, practical viewpoint on how AI is changing business and the world. He's big on talking about the guardrails we need for AI, drawing on his security and compliance experience, and he's got plenty of success stories to share along the way, along with a few cautionary tales. So make sure you join us for that episode, and a good way to do that is to follow Playbook AI Partners so you don't miss an episode. Until next time, take action, execute, and let's run the play.